We'll begin chapter 13. And to do that, I will show you the next map that I have for you over here. Let me bring up the next map. So this is an interesting map. This one, I didn't have the patience to recopy and make the picture of it. So hopefully I won't get in trouble for this. I'm not making copies and giving it out, just doing it online. So I'll use a map that I saw because it's impossible to understand it without using the map over here. So let me show you a little bit about the map. So we have here, this is the Dead Sea, okay, just to give you some understanding where we are. We have the Jordan River, we have the Sea of the Galilee, right? The river flows down from Mount Hermon, from the mountain, it flows down through here. And we have the eastern side of the Jordan River. So the first thing he's going to do is he's going to tell you the location. He's going to give you, following this, which is not in today's class, he's going to tell you about all the 31, I think, cities that Joshua conquered. Just going to make like a tally, a listing. But first, he wants to go over the lands that were already conquered by Moshe before Joshua entered Israel. If you remember, he gave these lands to the tribes. So let's look on the left, actually, for a second. You see there's Gad. I'm pointing to Gad. There's Reuben over here on the bottom. And then there's Manasseh on the top. So if you remember, when they came to the border, the tribes, Gad and Reuben told Moshe, we want to live here. We have a lot of animals. We want this pasturing land. We'll fight for the Jews when it comes time, but we actually don't want Israel property in Eretz Yisrael. We're happy to get our section over here and I guess divide the rest between the rest of the Jews. And Moshe stuck in Manasseh, half of Manasseh, half of his area will be here, and the other half will go, a huge section will go into Israel. He stuck in a descendant of the tribe of Joseph there. So you have here on the eastern side of the Jordan River, 2.5 tribes, Reuben, Gad, and then half of Manasseh is over here on this side. Now, who was there before? It's important to understanding the map. So there were a number of famous countries. Remember, we have Ammon and Moab. They're very famous. We had them in the Chumash in our class the other day, actually. We spoke about Lot, remember? And Lot had children in our Tuesday night class this past week. We actually spoke about it, that Lot fathered children with his daughter. Remember, his daughters thought the whole world was wiped out when their city of stone was wiped out. And they got their father drunk and they had 2 unhealthy children, and the unhealthy nation, spiritually unhealthy, came from these people. And who were they? They were the Ammonites and the Moabites. Okay, those were the 2 nations which the Jews will not conquer their land. We're going to talk about it that the Ruth will come out of the Moabites, and King Solomon will marry someone from the Ammonites, if I remember correctly, and Jews will not be conquering those nations. What will they be conquering? Which areas? So there's someone very famous called Sichon, who's the king of Heshbon. Often it's referred to this guy, whose name is here, Sichon, who is an Amori, not an Ammoni. Don't confuse it. The word sounds similar. Ammon and Amori, Ammonites and Amorites. So Sichon, who's the king of Amori, who is famous for the city of Heshbon, which in the times of Moshe they conquered, and they said it was a very strong city. Miraculously, they conquered it. We learned that in our Chumash class when we studied the book of Devarim, the last book of the Chumash, because this is recapping here the war of Moshe. And to the north was a very famous giant called Og. We always talk about him, that he was a remainder from the flood. We say that he actually survived the flood, and he told Sarah that Avram was killing her son. He lived for a long time. He also told Avraham that his nephew Lot was captured. Big, it's a little of a troublemaker, and he's finally going to be killed by Moshe Rabbeinu. We miraculously, remember, we learned that there were, maybe comes from the story, we learned that there were giants, there were angels who cohabited with people. Anyway, there were these crazy giants that were out of there. Wherever he came from, he was a person who keeps on showing up in the Chumash according to certain commentaries, and Moshe Rabbeinu finally gets rid of him, and that's this whole section of Og. Now, one of the markers, as often, by the way, what are used as markers? Rivers are often used as markers. I know when I went to Ukraine, Alter Rebbe is like buried by a certain river, and when they write, I think even a marriage document or a divorce document, when they say where it is, because rivers really stay for a very long time, so you could find the location by river. So rivers are very often used and very famous. So there's a river here I'm pointing to called the Arnon River. That's all the way to the south section of Sichon, King Sichon, who's an Amorite, all the way to the south of his border. And then all the way to the north is the Yabok River. So remember that. The Yabok River and the Arnon River kind of are the 2 borders of his sides. Now, his border goes through to the Yabok River, at least part of the Yabok River. The Jews will not conquer, if I understand correctly, any of the Ammonite territory, because over here by this Yabok River in the middle, they take over. The Ammonites take over. The Jews don't conquer that land, but they will conquer the whole country of Og, who's the king of Bashan. And that is, again, this whole area. Where does Og's territory go to until the Yabok River? So we're going to see, very interesting. You could see now inside, as I read you the verses and I go back to show you the map that we have, very interesting, but the original conquering of the Jewish people when they conquered the land of Israel. Let's go to the Navi, and hopefully I'll be able to jump back and forth and share with you the story in a clear manner. Be'ela malchei haaretz, and these are the kings of the country of the land. Asher hiku b'nei Yisrael, that the Jewish people smote. Yishu as artzam, and they inherited their land. Be'ever hayardin, on the other side of the Jordan, Mizrach on the east side, Mizrach Hashemesh, the east where the sun comes up, on the other side of the Jordan, where Moshe conquered before Yeshua took over the leadership. And I told you the rivers are very important. Menachel Arnon, from the river of Arnon, all the way, even past till Har Hermon, to the Hermon mountain, all the way to the north. Chol Arava Mizracha, and the whole plains of the east. So just to jump back and forth between the pictures, now that we have a general image of the map. So he's telling you they conquered all the way from the Arnon River, all the way to Mount Hermon. That is number 2. I numbered it here. The order will go in. That's number 2, Mount Hermon, all the way up on the top. Let's keep on going on to the to this verse 2. Sichon Melech Amori, the country to the south. His name was Sichon. He was the king of the Amorites. Hayoshev b'Cheshbon, the sad and that powerful big city of Cheshbon, which we learned about in the main Chumash already. All the story already happened in the main Chumash. Just recapping what area they conquered before when Moshe was still alive. Moshel, and he was a king over from a place called Aroer, from the city of Aroer. That's on the border of that river, the Arnon River we just spoke about, all the way to the south. Including to the midst of that river. The Chatzi HaGilad and his property went all the way halfway to a large area of land called Gilad, like I'll show you in the map. Ba'ad Yabok, and until Yabok HaNachal, the Nachal called Yabok, the Yabok River, Gvul B'nai Ammon, which will then start the border of the country of Ammon. And as we said, they're not going to go into the Ammonite territory. So his land went from the Arnon River until the Yabok River, and not including the Ammonite land and the this area. Let me see if I the Gilad area was split. See, Ramot Gilad is part of it is already in the Og's territory, and the other half of the Gilad is in the king of Cheshbon, in the king of Sichon. It's in his territory and not going into the Ammonite territory because it stops short. We're not conquering land, I guess, in the Ammonite territory. Let's go back to our verses here. Verse number 3. See, in Rashi here says there was a border of land for the children of Ammon, the edge of the territory that the land of the children of Ammon, and from there the children of Ammon were ruling. So they were not conquering the land from the Ammonites. They were leaving the Ammonites and going just until where Sichon, the king of the Amorites, was in charge of. Va'arava, and the plains, Ad Yam Kinrois, until the, I don't know if that's the Kinneret, I guess, till the river of the Kinneret, or Kinros, Mizrach, on the east, Va'ad Yam Ha'arava, and until the Yam HaMelech, until the Sea of Salt, which we know the Dead Sea, Mizrach on the east side, Derech Beis HaYishimos, following a city called Yishimos, Umiteimon Tachas Ashtus Pisgah, and from a south area called the Falls of Pisgah. So there are, that I saw according to the commentaries is the falls. I'll show you in the map. Now the falls to the near the Dead Sea. Maybe that's near. Maybe that's a place today in Israel. I don't know the Pisgah Falls, but it sounds to me like it's near where we have the En Gedi Falls. Perhaps I don't really know much geography well, but it sounds like it's maybe somewhere near there. Maybe the En Gedi is lower down actually. But there were Pisgah Falls over here. One of the places I saw was kind of to the north of the Dead Sea, northwest, I think it said, of the Dead Sea. So here you have the Pisgah Falls I wrote down, and he's going over the border. Let me see if I could find the different areas. So he says, city of Cheshbon, where he was king over, was the city of Cheshbon. You have that over here. And here you had Aroer. He mentioned Aroer in the map, and he mentioned Gilad area, the Yabok River, right? Those you see here on the map. And then where's number 8 here? I wanted to show you what he just. We're going to talk. And then here's the famous Yabok River, where the Ammonites were bordering the king of Sichon, and we were not going into the land of the Ammonites over here, and so on. Let me see what else. Do we have number 9 yet? Where did I put number 9? Yeah, remember I said he called it Kinrois. If that's the Kinneret, that would be over here. So they conquered the whole swath of land. He's pointing out different cities in the area where they conquered it from the Kinneret, he said, until the Dead Sea, which is over here. He said we conquered this whole section. It was near Beit Yeshimos. Okay, so you see that's near Beit Yeshimos until the Pisgah falls, which, according to some of the commentaries, they say that it is over here. Okay, let's move right along. I believe that's where we got to so far. We'll come back to the map in a minute. Let's move on to the next verse. Verse 4, Ugvul Og. Now let's move on to the border of Og, the giant Og I told you about to the north, where it was by the Hermon Mountains. The Og Melech HaBashan, and Og, who was the king of that area called Bashan. Miyeser HaRephaim, he survived the remnants of the giants. Hayoshei Ba'ashtaros Vedrei, and he lived in the area called Ashros and Edrei. Okay, Umayshel Bahar Hermon, and he was a ruler in the Mount Hermon. Uvesalcha, Uvechala Bashan, an area called Salcha, and the whole area we call the king of Bashan. That whole section is called Bashan. Ad Gvul Hagushri v'Hamachasi. So his property bordered, I guess, on the two neighboring countries, the Gushri and the Machasi. The Chatzi Hagilad, and then remember he went down to get half the area called Gilad. Gvul Sichon, which bordered on the next person, the country which the Jews took over, which was the king Sichon, who was the king of Heshbon. I'm just going to go back to the map now and show you the areas it's really the same we spoke about, but we said this guy, Og, the king of Bashan, was the king of that whole slath here of Bashan, including Ashtarosh and Edrei. They must have been big cities at the time. Salcha, that is the area that we are referencing over here. In this whole area, the Jews basically took over that part of the country too. Very interesting. Let's move on. Moshe Eved Hashem, Moshe the servant of God, Hikum smote them, right? Moshe, who did everything Hashem said, he was a servant of God before even Joshua took over in our Navi. Vayitna Moshe Eved Hashem, Moshe the servant of God gave it as Yerusha inheritance to which 3 tribes? Ruveni, Gadi, Ulachati Sheph of the Menashe, Ruven, God, and the half a tribe of Menashe, which I showed you. We'll go back to that one more time. We're almost done. See over here, so Ruvain will get a swath of land here, God will get a swath of land here, and Menashe will get this swath of land to the north, as we're just reading inside the Navi. And that is the end for today's lesson. God willing, next time we get to learn, we'll continue with the verse 7, which talks about, give us a whole list of all the countries. We'll have a map of the 31, I think, cities that Yeshua conquered in Israel proper, in the western side of Israel. Any questions or comments on today's